You are now listening to Cyber Timebite, hosted by me, Stephen Clark. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey there, everybody. It's your boy, Steve. Once again, for episode 144. Oh man, that is nuts. 144 episodes, and I don't know what to think. That's crazy. But today, I have someone on who is actually really awesome, really cool. He used to wrestle at one point, and he does some podcasting things now and some other things. We'll figure that out today. Today I am with That Nerdy Kev, a.k.a. Kevin Smith Jr.
Thank you for having me on your show. It's funny because I think like you booked me for this based off of my performance on Let's Chat Live like a week ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that today, and as we've been chatting and sitting here sipping my water with my sleepy eyes, and I'm like, you know what? I think he doesn't know I'm a fraud. Like I'm not I'm not that funny. I'm not that great. Like that was like a rare instance that like I'm really thinking back to that performance that of an interview, and like all the stars aligned for that to be like, oh, we're streaming live. Like you put the words live in front of me, and I want to be like on fire. And like the video component, I think was like a huge part of that. Like I could see the reactions that I was getting. So I want to apologize to you in advance when I don't live up to those expectations on this show.
Dude, let me tell you, this may be audio only, but by the end of this thing, I'm pretty sure we're going to live with the expectations more than we ever could have.
I mean, I will. I can live up to the expectations of talking for more than 50, more than 70% of the show. I'm always a talker, audio, video, whatever the medium is. That is where that Kevin Smith branding comes in. I am not the Silent Bob of my group at all. I am the Kevin Smith of my group with the amount of talking I do.
So I guess one question I want to ask, since fellow podcaster that likes expanding their podcast tastes, so what do you think? Like, what do you think of the idea of like, you know, if you have the money and you have the resources and blah 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 blah, and there was a pandemic, like, how do you feel, like going like, oh, instead of just calling you on my computer and like doing the interview through the internet, how about I just come to you and we just do it in person, and like you like go to like Philadelphia, you can go like outside Philadelphia to like Pittsburgh to like Maine and England and like maybe China, Germany, Italy, like all the different Canada, Mexico. Like how would you feel about that?
Man, this is going to be a great response because I don't know what happened, but my screensaver popped on and all the audio dropped. So I heard you talking about how would you feel about and traveling to a bunch of places. So I'm going to say something about going on a podcasting tour is what you asked me about. And that would actually like for real talk, like that was like the dream. I mean, it's something that hasn't come up here yet. But if anyone's like a crossover listener from the Let's Chat show or anything that I do in general, I wear it on my sleeve that I've been in podcasting since 2007. So I've seen like all the trends. I've been part of all the trends. I like to think that I've kicked some of the trends off. Not necessarily, on a national or international level, but like the idea of like a touring live show has been like, oh man, that would be so fun to do if I had the money. Like that would be um if I could support my family and have proper health care doing podcasting. um I would probably like I would do that because it is like for me, as we kind of talked about before we hit record, like it is like the creative outlet that I miss from wrestling. That was like as a kid, like that's how I dealt with my emotions and it was being creative, and wrestling is just that storytelling. It's improv. um and podcasting for me kind of like it gets that creative itch of storytelling, depending on the project, and definitely be improv. um uh, that it hits all the right itches.
Mm-hmm. Because like, dude, if I could freaking like just like, you don't know how many times I just wanted to be like, do you know what? I'm just gonna come to you and we could just do it in person, and then the audio would just have no problem because like it'd be so awesome if I could go from like my little room here in Chicago and like, come to Philadelphia and come to you and freaking be in your little house there in outer Philadelphia, and we can freaking just like, do this in person, and then like people like that, and then I get called to go to Europe to go do this, and then I freaking go to England where I always wanted to go and do a podcast there in front of like a anime convention that they do there or a comic con they do there, and I do a panel there or do a podcast with someone there, and then I can like go to like Italy and Germany and see all these other places. I never had ambitions to do world travel ever, but if my podcast gave me opportunities to interview people, even if they're not even in our own country, like that would be amazing.
Well, and I, especially since you're in that, like, I believe you called it Chicago land area.
Yeah.
The I firmly believe like when you're if you're in hubs like that where you can easily get to, I mean, obviously not during a pandemic, but when you can easily get to like conventions and stuff, like there's there's no reason that I who should be able to book panels and convention shows, but I was able to book a handful of them in 2018 and 2019, just simply by applying. Like that's everything that I've done in like I don't know, phase 2 or 3 of I'll probably phase 2, we'll call it phase 2 of podcasting for me, which is like the 2016 to 2019 2020 era of my podcasting. That was like me trying to find new ways to have fun with podcasting and new ways to figure out how to be creative with it. And it started like the main thing was like, oh, let me do podcasting for fun again. Like I spent the first like near, I don't know, I think it was 2016, I spent the first 9 years of podcasting like thinking, oh, I want to find a way to make money off of this. And as I'm sure you know, and anyone that's really probably listening to this, spoilers, you don't make money from podcasting unless your name is Kevin Smith, Mark Maron, or any of the countless
Joe
celebrities
Rogan.
that are doing it.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Joe Rogan's like he's got to be the richest person off of podcasting. But
and Howard Stern.
Well, does he do podcasting?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a podcast, but he still does his radio gig that he's been doing for decades. So, I mean, you can technically call it a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, he is like and definitely like when in that phase 1 of my podcasting from 2007 to like, I think phase 1 technically ended around 2012 ish, maybe 2013 ish. And I took a few years off when I became a father for the first time. But that phase 1 was like, okay, I like, again, in 2007, there wasn't really like a lot of podcasting. So there wasn't really like a blueprint for like how, like, what do you do? How do you do it? And so like the blueprint for me was, like local talk radio. And in Philadelphia, I don't know if it was like this in Chicago, but like as Howard Stern was leaving the radio to go to satellite, our local rock station that he was on became an all talk station called Free FM, and had Kid Chris, Matt and Huggy, Opie and Anthony for a while were mornings, David Lee Roth mornings. And it was talk 24/7. Maybe at night, maybe overnight they played music again, but from like 6 a.m. to like 10 p.m. it was all talk, and that I loved it. I was probably the only person in Philadelphia that loved losing the rock, because I've never been a music guy, always been a talk. I mean, again, I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, so I've always been a fan of dialogue, always been a fan of his commentary tracks and his evenings with, and I've always been a fan of just people talking. Mm-hmm. So like for me, that phase one, like of podcasting, the inspiration and the blueprint was kind of like that shock jock talk radio format that we did for years. And then, as one does, you kind of grow up and you kind of eventually, like for me, it took having a kid. It took taking time off from podcasting to like realize what I wanted to do with it. And that was like, I'm not going to make money. That's not the goal anymore. The goal is to just have fun and be creative. And the first part of that was like finding out how to do that, which was creating a show called Everything is Awesome, where I sit down and just talk to new people every week. And then, and this is where my bit of advice comes in, is that like I eventually started taking chances on myself to say, you know what, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And I applied to the Philadelphia Podcast Festival and I got into that. And then like the year later, I think, so that was 2016 when the first year I started Everything is Awesome. And then like, I think maybe in 2018, I forget if I did it in 2017 or not, but definitely 2018 and 2019, I started like Wizard World, which I think goes through the Chicago area. Wizard World and local cons like the Philadelphia Comic Con. They all instantly said yes to me, like putting on panels at these conventions. Mm-hmm. So like the next time Wizard World comes through Chicago and they're accepting panel submissions, if you have an idea for like you and I didn't have anyone of name. I had no big names on my panel. Like they were all just, friends or like people that I kind of knew or friends of friends. And we did, I would do 3 or 4 panels a show, a weekend. And I don't think Wizard World, nothing against them, but I don't think they say no to anybody. Like, I think they let everyone on. So if you have a solid idea to sit around and talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League for an hour, do it.
Because I thought you were about to tell me, I thought you were about to say like, it'd be cool if you came to Philadelphia and you were a guest in my panel. That would be really cool. It's like, okay.
I mean, hey, I haven't even thought about panels in a year and a half at this point. 2019, let me think. 2019 summer was probably the last panel I did. So and 2020 there was no room for panels, and quite honestly, despite the chances of us all being vaccinated by the time conventions are a thing, at least in Philadelphia again, I don't know if I'm going in 2021. I don't know that I will be comfortable going into a large convention, a bunch of sweaty nerds who are always coughing anyway. And I say that out of respect and love because I'm one of those sweaty nerds. But we all are just dirty, sick people at those convention centers and those conventions. And I don't know that I'm ready for that in 2021.
I don't think they're even coming. I mean, because get this, you didn't hear about this because you don't live in the area, but like, they're promoting ICP, the Insane Clown Posse, to be playing at Anime Midwest this year, and we don't even know the convention's even going to happen this year.
Right. That's the same thing is happening with some things in Philly here, like. I think right now, like none of the Wizard World or Keystone Comic Cons, like none of those which happen, usually in like between May and August are like those actual Comic Cons in Philly. None of them have really said anything yet, but PAX Unplugged, which is part of the PAX family of conventions, but devoted to tabletop games, board games, role playing games, and the such. They're committed to, and because it's like November is when they come to town. They're, as of now, I think, committed to their 2021 dates, and they also waited till like 3 weeks before, maybe a month before 2020 to officially cancel. So that, and that's and quite honestly, like that has become my favorite convention that comes through Philadelphia. And even then, I don't have anything to say convention wise, like panel wise at that convention quite yet. I'm entering that space now where I may have something to say one day. But like even just from a fan / press perspective, like I don't know that I'm ready for that many people in one area and we're talking that's what 8 months from now. That sounds, just like thinking about the last year, that sounds so insane that in 8 months we're talking about having hundreds of thousands of people in the same room.
And that's what they're expecting for ICP AMA Midwest, which is usually in July.
Yeah, like see that, like a small like 100 people, 100-person event, family event, something like that. That okay, I think I can get behind that for July. That makes sense to me, especially if like by May 1st, every adult, American is going to be eligible for the vaccine instead of having all these planned phases. Like I could see July being a time where, oh yeah, we can get a couple hundred people somewhere, or we could get at least 100 to 200 people somewhere and not have to worry about masks and stuff. But like you're talking big concerts where you have that many people, or big festivals where you have that many people. And this is just me speaking. Like I don't know that I'm ready, even if I know it's safe. I don't know that I can mentally handle that kind of like responsibility.
Yeah, but like, do you think that we'll ever get back the regular convention scene back? Like, do you think we're gonna get like how it was before the pandemic ever even hit? Do you think we'll ever get back to that?
I think we do. I think it's going to take a while for it to be like at full blown 100%. I think it might even, if it does come sooner than later, I think it will come with like some caveats. Like personally, like and this is a big if I go to PAX Unplugged this year, it's going to be wearing a mask. Even if I'm vaccinated, even if other people are vaccinated, like I think something like that in 2021, where there's going to be a lot of people that I don't know, and coming in from all these different areas. Because again, Pat, like the Comic Cons in Philadelphia are usually local people. It's usually all the greater Philadelphia area coming to see the big stars of nerdom and genre at Wizard World or at Keystone. But PAX Unplugged is a different story. PAX Unplugged, there's no other. Well, there are other conventions, but like in the PAX family of conventions, it's all video game based except for PAX Unplugged. So like that, you get people coming from Canada. You get people. The gaming community is video games and tabletop games, but tabletop specifically in this instance, like it's a huge community, and they come from all over the country. They come from other countries, Canada, England, Germany. There were so many international people and representation at PAX Unplugged, as well as so many like just national representation at that convention. I don't know that if I go, and that's a big if I go, it's wearing a mask, and that's going to be true to any, like, I think if I go to a sporting event, I might wear a mask over like if I go to a baseball game this summer, it might be wearing a mask. I think the mask, while it won't be, I think, a new normal on a wide scale in America here, I think that you're going to see masks on people, I think, for at least the next 5 years in some capacity.
Yeah, because I'm waiting for the day when I can just walk out of my house, even go to my job, go to Walmart, the convention scene, anything. out wearing a mask because I'm fully vaccinated. I already got my vaccinations, and like, but like, but like, gee, I'm waiting for the day I can just like go somewhere without wearing a mask, and like, and if it's not this year, even like if we had to suffer for last year and we're gonna have to suffer again this year, do you think next year there'll definitely be some normality because by that point the vaccination will be rolled out full enough by
Right.
that time?
Right. I would imagine by this time next year in 2022, everyone will be getting their re-up vax. Like I assume COVID vaccine is going to be like the flu shot. Like you're going to have your flu shot, you're going to have your COVID shot. And I definitely think that by I think that sometime in 2021 you're going to see, I don't know if you'll see it on a national scale with the president or on a more local scale with your governors and stuff. I think by sometime in 2021 they're going to say that masking is optional, recommended but optional.
Oh boy.
And probably in 2022, you know, I think that by the end of this year you could go to Walmart without a mask, or you know, store of choice without a mask.
Yeah. Because
I don't know that I will.
Yeah, because here in Chicago, I mean, like all the states have their rules and laws and whatever. I can't say what it is for your state, but for my state at least, they're saying our governor is saying that we have phases. We have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. Phase 1 is basically where we were when the pandemic began. Phase 2 is like a little better than that. Phase 3 is pretty much, I don't remember all the rules, but the governor says that phase 5 is the phase when we cannot, phase 5 is like, it's like the godsend phase, because then that means we don't have to wear a mask anymore. We can do conventions. We can,
right.
Pretty much you can go back to our daily lives before a pandemic hit. That's what phase 5 is, and we're only like on phase 4, I think. So.
Yeah, and I realistically, I think that phase, you know, for you guys, phase 5. I don't know what PA is doing. It might be. At one point, it was colors like green, yellow, red. I really don't know. I kind of stopped paying attention because I just came to terms with like, oh, this is our life now.
Orange for you guys because, you know, the Flyers.
I'm sure it was probably like it had to be, there had to be some orange in there. But to be fair, I don't know that Governor Wolf is a Flyers fan. That's not, you know, that's a very Philadelphia thing. The orange being it, orange and green and red for our major sports teams. I guess blue for the 76ers, blue and red. I don't know. I'm not a big basketball fan, but yeah, no, but honestly, like I don't mind wearing the mask at all. I love it, kind of like I don't. It's never really bothered me. Like unless I'm actually doing physical work, I don't really get overheated with the mask on. I don't have to smile at people when I'm walking by them in the hallways at work or in stores. When I see someone that I recognize, I can just give a head nod or be like, "Hey, what's up?" I don't have to be like, "Oh, let me be smiling and friendly all the time." I can kind of be my despite the persona that's out there of me being like very positive and stuff, which I am. I tend to look at the positive things. Mm-hmm. I just, when it comes to social interactions, despite all this talking I'm doing on these on shows, I very much am like a introvert, and I don't want to interact with people. So like I will stick with the mask for quite a while until it becomes awkward, painfully awkward for people to be like, why is that guy still wearing a mask? Like, that's going to be who I am. I want to be the guy that's still wearing a mask a year too long.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, you say that, but you wouldn't be saying that if you wore glasses.
Now, so I do. I mean, I wear contacts a lot, but I do wear glasses. I wear my sunglasses. It is very difficult. I got my tricks though. I currently double mask. I have gone to the CDC recommended route of double masking, mm-hmm. and not all the time. Like if I'm in a drive-through, and you don't even have to do this because most drive-throughs have their plexiglass up. But if I'm in a drive-through, I throw on one mask real quick as I'm paying and collecting my food because I don't want to. I just it's for me it's like a respect thing. Like I'm like you're out here, quote unquote risking your life. They are risking their lives. They're essential workers doing their job at a fast food joint, making a shitty amount of money, and the least I can do is like, hey, let me throw a mask on out of like I see you, I'm with you, we're in this together. I'll throw my mask on, pull away, take my mask off.
Yeah,
I'll single mask for that. But like and at my desk, if someone comes up to chat with me, I throw a single mask on. But if I'm walking around and I'm at the store or whatever, I've gone the double mask route. And again, honestly, I love it. It's hard to wear glasses with a double mask. I haven't found a solution. But single masking, you can just slip the glasses on top of the mask and you avoid the fogging. At least I do. I haven't had fogged glasses in quite some time.
Well, I mean, it's not as bad now because in the winter it was worse because it was because when you had the mask on and the air from the mask got onto your glasses, it was like your the window on your house fogging up because of the
right
because that fury. But it doesn't really happen much to me now because it got warmer outside, so it doesn't really affect me much. But it's the winter that really kills it.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, like I maybe because I think I've only been wearing my contacts for like a month or two, which I guess is like a majority of the winter. But I feel like I was able to solve the fogging issue when I was wearing my glasses every day pretty quickly. I'm probably one of the few people that will say I'm happy wearing a mask. It does not, and I realize I'm the freak. I'm the weirdo that says that. But it does not bother me at all. Like I'm perfectly content with saying that I'm going to wear a mask out in public in public space. If I have a private event that has like 20, 50 people, whatever, I won't wear a mask, assuming that we're all vaccinated. But I will if I'm going to a convention. Like if I go to, again, I don't think Wizard World. I really don't think Wizard World's going to happen in Philadelphia this year because it butts up like it's in like usually June-ish, May or June-ish. But if like Keystone happens or if PAX Unplugged happens, I want to go. I really, really want to go and just experience that feeling again of going to a convention. I'm maybe 10% of me will go. I have a 10% chance of going. But if I do go, I will be masking up because I don't want to smile at people. If I'm being honest, I just don't want to smile. And again, I think in 2021, I think for me personally, and I don't know that like my kids, my fiance, they may by the end of the summer, they may go maskless unless they're required to, even in the fall for school or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I plan on wearing a mask for probably the rest of 2021 in a public space. Because again, for me, it doesn't matter. Especially I've switched to. I had these like fancy, cool, nerdy cloth masks that I was like, oh, cloth is great. It's thick. It's gonna protect me more. I can show my nerd. But I switched to disposable masks and like they clip around your nose real nice. They're light and breathy. Like it's a whole new world in a disposable mask.
Yeah, I mean, they sell masks now that have like a little thing you can pull over, you can put your glasses over, and it doesn't fog them up. I don't have one of those personally. Even though I should because I have glasses, but I mean,
and if you're already like pot committed to like as soon as they say I don't have to wear them, I'm getting rid of it. Yeah, I don't know that you want to necessarily start investing in the masks that are going to change your life.
Well, I mean, the thing is that like when they say you don't have to wear a mask anymore. I'm going to do that, but like probably my family's going to make me want to keep wearing them because they're going to be concerned about if I still might get it and blah, blah, blah. They're probably going to still make me wear a mask until the whole thing's completely over. But dude, I do not want to wear the mask anymore. Like,
and it's a real concern for some people, and I get it. And as long as like your concern is just like, I'm over it. I have an issue of concern when it's like, oh, it's my freedom. Like, Kai, dude, like, we're we're not asking you to do anything to like for your free. We're asking you for just a little bit of respect while we're all going through this shitty time. I don't want to get political. This is we're dancing on that line of being political. So I don't want to do that to your audience. I don't want to agitate anybody.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, for the people who are listening to this and get political over this mask stuff, I mean, like, they just, I don't know. I don't want to say they can buzz off because I'm not that sort of person, but it's just like we're having a conversation. It's not like we're talking. It's not like we're talking about like lava versus water and how they should mix. like we're talking about freaking masks.
It is the way I look at just like this time in history. Like for me, and when it comes to the masks, I believe in it. I believe in that science because like for Pennsylvania, I believe we're about 6 days away from officially 1 year of quarantine, or some form of quarantine.
Next year's going to be next week. It's going to be the year. It's going to be the year of the quarantine because I saw this on Facebook and it's funny. It's that like this week last year was our last week in normalcy and we didn't even know it.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's insane that like we are in like this time last year. It was like, okay, are we going to go play paintball this weekend? Like, is that going to happen? Or like, should we not? Like, should we just play it safe and like?
Well, we didn't even know that. We didn't even know if we were gonna. We didn't have that on our minds. Like, oh, we're gonna play it safe. Like that wasn't even a thing on our mind. I think like all the concerns didn't happen until technically next week last year.
Well, and I guess you're right. Now, looking at the date, I guess technically, like for PA, it was probably like around the 13th. Like we are at almost the year mark when the NHL and the NBA shut down. Like, or maybe we've already passed that mark. But we're like, when they said, "Oh, we're going to close it down for a few weeks," and like we're approaching in a few days here in Pennsylvania when like certain schools started shutting down in Pennsylvania, and like, oh, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks never ended, and it is crazy. It is really crazy to think about. Like, oh, this has been the longest and shortest year ever. Like it feels like a long year, but I also like look at the time. I'm like, I can't believe a year ago almost it's been like that's when we had to start like living through this weird unprecedented time of our lives. And you know, for me it's like, okay, I believe the science. I'm gonna wear the mask. And like it's also like, hey, this is like, you know, as a dad, like, hey, to my kids, like this is something that you'll never live through again. This is something your kids will never live through. Something that your grandkids will probably never live. Like nothing like this is ever going to happen again in our lifetimes or any lifetimes that you can think of. Like it's so like take the time to like kind of appreciate, like for the most part, I find in real life, not on the internet, not on Twitter, for the most part, I find that people are very respectful of everyone else and 100% about let's wear our masks, let's be kind to each other, let's be safe for one another, let's be there for each other. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just the community I happen to live in, but I'm very proud of the fact that I'm that lucky. I guess I know everyone's not that lucky. You know, it's part of the privilege I live with, I guess.
No, I mean, like it's. No, I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean, like it's gonna be so weird when your kids grow up or when they get older, when they come up to you and they say, "Why did I have to see Grandma behind a window my whole childhood?"
Right. I mean, and they're old enough to like my kids are we have a third one that's due in a few months here, but we have my oldest is 9 and my youngest, well, my middle now is 6, so going to be 7 in a few months. Mm-hmm. So like they're old enough to like they kind of get what's going on, they kind of understand what's going on, and so it's cool because it's like I can tell them like, hey, this is like a learning experience for you, and this is something for you to like really pay attention to, because this is something that probably by the time you're in high school, like you'll probably this will be something that's in history books, and whether it's something that you guys actually learn about in history, because like for me and likely you to a degree, like we are, the closest thing to something like this happening in my lifetime before this was 9/11. I was I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, and like now kids today, including mine, are learning about that in history books. So I guess they're kind of like maybe they won't really learn about it in any kind of future history class because they did live through it, but like their little brother who is not born yet, like will learn about the fucked up year of 2020, the year that was lost. They'll learn about that at some point in their school career in the next 5 to 18 years.
Yeah, like,
and I think that's crazy.
Yeah, but like when you open up a history book in history class, there's not going to be things talked about this year separated in a history book. It's just the section is just going to be called 2020.
Right. It's going to be a page 2020. What happened? And they're gonna and then it's gonna move on to 2021.
Yeah, and like 2020 and like most of 2021 are not less. Or if 2021 ends up being the same exact way as 2020, the section is literally going to be called 2020/2021.
Right. It is, but it's neat because there's a generation of kids that are being born right now that for them they're going to experience this as far as like secondhand knowledge a completely different way than like a generation and a half of kids have learned about 9/11. I mean, I guess if we have a 10-year difference, you were a little kid. You were under 10 years old when 9/11 happened. So like 9/11, I'm sure hits different for you than it hits for me because, I was practically a legal adult. I was a year away. I was 9 months away from being a legal adult when 9/11 happened.
When 9/11 happened for me, I didn't understand what was going on because I was so small. I didn't understand what was going on,
Right. And I can't because I was a senior and I of course didn't pay attention to, elementary or grade school, I should say, curriculum. I can speak, beyond when I left. So I don't know if that was, I have to assume something of that scale, like you guys learned, like you guys acknowledged at the very least, every year for the rest of your schooling. But like now it's actual history. Now it's something that like the kids learn about and still pay their respects to. And it is 9/11 was like my moment to like pay attention and like realize that this is a history defining moment in my lifetime that you usually don't get more than one of those, if one at all. And now, you and I both, just at different eras of our life, have experienced two, defining history changing moments. 9/11 was like it wasn't necessarily a global scale thing. I mean, the whole world was on notice about it, but it was a very American thing that happened.
It affected us more than anyone else.
Right. And now, this COVID-19 is a global scale event that, unfortunately, I don't think really united anyone the way 9/11 did. Like 9/11 really did unite America. Like I don't think America was any stronger before or after than like that 12 months after that year after 9/11. Like it was a really strong time where like, oh, we're Americans and we need to like let's like be there for each other. We didn't really, I don't think we experienced that. If anything, I think COVID-19 had some division on not just a national scale but on a global scale. I think it caused a lot of division versus uniting.
Yeah, because whatchamacallit, I mean, like 2001 was a disaster year in more ways than one. I mean, like, yeah, 9/11 was like the worst thing that happened that year, and it sucked. because of that. But that was also the same exact year World Championship Wrestling WCW and ECW shut their doors and they got bought by Vince McMahon. So like those are like the three worst things that happened that year. 9/11 being the worst, obviously, but like that was the second worst thing that happened that year.
It's so like, and that's where like I before we recorded the trivia comes in where I won't win. Like I definitely lived through that. I was definitely a fan at that time. I was watching it then, and I witnessed all that, and it doesn't even like that doesn't register as that happened in 2001. Like part of my memory issue is from wrestling. Like I took. I mean, I was trained, so I took proper bumps, but I also took proper chair shots. I also, I jostled my head around. So I think wrestling has a little to do with that, with having a bad memory. But yeah, I mean, that wouldn't even register to me as a thing that happened in 2001. But I think that's also a sign of like the generational gap between us, as in, for you as a young boy through 9/11, that necessarily, as an example, like the thing that happened, this was kind of a huge event, not on the same scale, but the OJ Simpson thing, his trial, that was, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, something like that. I was a young boy when that happened, and I probably more things were registering on my map at that time than the OJ trial. Like, yes, I have the memory of the Bronco driving on the TV, but like, I'm sure I was more concerned about Pokemon and had more memories and knowledge about that than I do the OJ Simpson case. Whereas, as an adult, everything stopped mattering that day. That 9/11 for a 17-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I think it's neat. I don't get to say this often because I don't do interview shows anymore, but I love talking to, older people, and I love talking to younger people, because there's such a generational gap between the people that are in their 40s, that are 10 years older than me, and then 10 years younger than me. We're all so like, I'm so close in age to people that are 46 years old, and I'm so close to people that are 26, 27 years old in age. It's not a huge gap difference, but the lived experiences are so fascinating to think about.
I mean,
because again, good.
No, I don't mean to cut you off, but like, how old are you?
I'm 36. I'll be 37 in July.
Yeah, so I mean, you're not too much older than me, so I mean, like, how how like you said, we've been through roughly the same things. Yours is way older than I was, but
right, and it's so fascinating to think like, oh, that totally makes sense. That like, I think probably a lot of wrestling fans, obviously not just everyday fans, but I think a lot of kids that are about 9 to 10 years younger than me, they have their experience of 2001 is almost exactly what you just said. It was like, oh yeah, obviously 9/11 was huge. Like that was devastating. That's the biggest bad thing that happened in 2001. But like, remember, and for you, it's the wrestling, because obviously wrestling seems to be like, I would have to guess based off your Twitter feed, probably one of your biggest like hobbies or passions or whatever outside of podcasting and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling is one of my biggest passions. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. But like, I also love like Guitar Hero and hockey and
right. So like, and if you loved hockey when you were 8 years old, I guarantee you there's probably a hockey storyline from 2001 that sticks out to you as well. I'm trying to pull up, and this is going to be
I'm a
weird
recent
thing
hockey
to
fan. I haven't been watching since I was a kid. I just recently got into it like this year.
Oh, okay. So then maybe not. But I Googled, and I guess really this is not a great thing to Google 2001 events. That's not.
And while you're doing that, I don't want to go off on another tangent, but I just want to say, like, did you at least hear about NHL TV going under and they're just ESPN is taking over like ABC, ESPN, ESPN Plus, and something else I forget are just taking over the broadcasting of the NHL all next fall.
I saw something on, I think, trending on Twitter about that. I'm not. Uh, I enjoy hockey from a very sideline position. I wasn't a big fan of it until about probably about not 7 years ago, probably about 10 to 12 years ago. I started watching it. And even then, like when I can't tell you the last time I watched a game. Like hockey has the same problem as baseball for me, where there's like 90 games, 100. There's a lot of games going on right now. Oh, I'll just catch the next one, or I'll catch it later in the season, and then suddenly it's the playoff times, and the Flyers are usually either an early elimination or not in the playoffs. So like I don't watch hockey that often. It's another thing that I'll like. Oh man, the Flyers played last night. Let me see how they did. But like I can't tell you one active player on that team. I know that at one point Danny Brodier, whatever how you pronounce his last name, he was a player on the team. That's about all my hockey knowledge for the Flyers.
They're one of my favorite teams. Pittsburgh as well.
What's funny as I was born in the greater Philadelphia area. I lived in the greater Philadelphia area my entire life. I bleed Eagles green. I am save for the Pirates. I am a fan of the teams across the state. Both the Steelers and the Penguins. And the Penguins, I probably shouldn't, because they are more like the Pirates, where they play in the same division as the Flyers, the Philadelphia team. But I got into hockey with a Pittsburgh fan, and so I watched that the year that I got into hockey. I probably watched more Pittsburgh games than I did Flyer games. So I'm actually I do like the Penguins. I would never really sport their gear because I just don't I don't watch hockey enough. So I do have some Flyers gear because I live in Philly and I do appreciate the Flyers. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to football, is my sport. Football is the sport that I watch as much as I can. At least Philadelphia, at least the Eagles. And but again, people are like, "Oh, you can't like the Steelers. They're your competition in Pennsylvania." But I'm like, hey, if the Eagles aren't going to win, and trust me, I lived through 30 some years of no championships with the Eagles. So often it was if the Eagles aren't going to win, I'd rather Steelers are my second choice, because I want Pennsylvania to represent a championship. And NFC, AFC, they're two different conferences. Not even different. They're not even in the same conference. So I 100% support the only Pittsburgh team I don't like, and I don't even know if I don't think they have a basketball team. Again, I don't watch basketball. Mm-hmm. The only team I don't like in Pittsburgh is the Pirates, and that's because they are in the same exact division as the Phillies, and I have watched baseball long enough to respect that kind of I love these unspoken rules of sports and being a fan of sports, where you can't. I'm an Eagles fan. I can't like the Giants or the Cowboys or the Washington football team. I can't respect those teams. I have to throw batteries at those teams. I have to fight those teams. So that's that's baseball and football. I have hard lines on the teams I'm allowed to like, and the teams I have to actively root against. Hockey, not so much. Hockey is very I love Olympic hockey. I just love. It's there's an art form to Olympic hockey.
Mm-hmm. What were we talking about before the sports? Because I didn't mean to go on a tangent with that, but what were we talking about?
That's a good question. It's funny because I come from a show of tangents. Prior to doing this single player role playing game, actual play podcast, I did an interview show a lot like this, and often we went on tangents, and I would forget what we were talking about. So you would think as the guest I would be better in tune with trying to remember that. I think we were talking about 9/11 definitely at one point. I don't know. We can move on to less serious things and more fun things like sports and other things.
Well, something I want to ask you, and I think you were the one that started this, but PodCon, like there's podcast conventions in your state. Did you start that, or was that something that you guys...
Well, so let me say, PodCon is a thing that I did not start, but before PodCon was a thing, I had the idea for it, and this goes back to, and I'm sure I know I'm not the first. Like there were other people that were thinking of these things as I was thinking of them, obviously because they eventually became things. But like going back to like, you know, the start of this interview when we were talking about podcasting, you know, having been in the podcasting game since 2007, like there was a time where like, I eventually did a show and when I had to leave, like go on vacation. So there was like 3 weeks we weren't going to be able to record. Like the other people involved with the show, they recorded their own thing and published it on our feed. And then we're like, well, why don't we keep that thing going as a separate show? Like we could create. And at the time there wasn't, you know, they weren't called podcast networks. So I was like, why can't we do something like a channel? Like there's ABC, there's NBC, there's Fox with a lineup of shows. Why can't we do like a podcast channel? Mm-hmm. And like didn't call it a network and whatnot. And like, of course, like, and that was probably like in 2008 or 2009 that idea came up, probably 2008. And then, you know, they eventually became a big thing. And same thing with PodCon. I forget what year it was, but VidCon it was called, was like the first year of VidCon was huge because it was like all the YouTubers, all the big YouTubers. And back then it was like your live streamers were on, like I think it was Justin TV, Blog TV, Stickcam, stuff like that. Like, oh, they're all going to go to this VidCon thing. And I had talked to my like at the time, I guess he was like a producer, co-host. Like I co-hosted on his show. He helped me out with my show and stuff. So and I was like, what? Like, and we had office space. We had office space and studio space in this cool little building in Warminster, PA. That was where like NASA did like trainings and stuff. Like Neil Armstrong was like he trained there, and we were like cleaning up the studio or we were packing up for the day or something. I was like, you know what would be cool, and we could do it here. Like there's like a giant like central space that was used or could be used for like some form of a convention. I was like, we could do PodCon here. Like there's a VidCon. Why can't we do PodCon? And lo and behold, a few years later, PodCon was a thing. But in Philadelphia, we have the Philadelphia Podcast Festival, which is much like any other. And to me, that's what really, more so than the actual PodCon that exists, the Philadelphia Podcast Festival was like what I envisioned PodCon to be. Mm-hmm. To a degree, like the Philadelphia Podcast Festival doesn't do any kind of panels or anything. I kind of envisioned like some sort of a combination of like a music festival or comedy festival with the convention kind of aspects of like, oh, here's like someone who's going to just do a TED talk on remote podcasting. Here's someone who's going to do a TED talk on, or have like a panel of guests who's going to talk about like, how do you market your show, or how do you get book guests or whatever. And that's never really taken off in Philly here. And even to a degree, like a podcast festival, and I'm sure it's the same in Chicago and less so in New York and LA because, and to be honest, less so in Chicago because those are the three cities that like pull in bigger names, mainstream names. But when it comes to independent podcasting, Chicago has their own right to say they're the king of it. I disagree. I think it's Philadelphia.
I mean, I'm from Chicago, and I got my podcast here in my state, and I know there's many other people here in my own state who run a podcast. I'm not the only one, but I mean, I'm pretty good. I feel like I'm pretty good, but that's just me.
Chicago has, if you look at the independent scene of Chicago, I don't know much about it, but I do know and listen to a lot of shows that I would consider are independent productions from that area, and very, very much I think has the claim to say they maybe there's more talented independent podcasters there, but the greater Philadelphia area has a tremendous. I mean, our festival would be a total of like 4 days over 2 weekends and be across 2 or 3 different venues and booked from 12 to 9 p.m. on those days. And then starting with the 5th anniversary of that festival, and I none of this credit goes to me. I helped run sound at some of the shows, but the festival started booking like we got this with Mark and Hal. Hal Lublin is actually a greater Philadelphia native who moved out to LA. He was part of like he's done stuff for Night Vale, and I'm really I like really like show like he's voiced to things that people would know of, not me because I'm a Venture Brothers. That's it. He's done voices on that, and his co-host Mark has done a bunch of things, but he's been part of festivals like they've flown him out and his co-host out to do live shows. Stallbones has been part of the Philadelphia Podcast Festival, so they really grew the Philadelphia Podcast Festival to be a combination of local talent and also like, oh, let's bring in some not as often as New York and LA do with their festivals, but let's bring in some outside talent, just kind of like fill in the space during the week. So now we have weekend one with like 25 shows, and then we have like 1 or 2 shows, probably like I guess 1 or 2 shows a night. That's even saying too much. It was probably like more like 3 to 4 shows throughout the week in between the next weekend where you had another 25 shows performing. And I don't know if another festival does that. And save for those big shows that were held at actual like theater venues, like those ones you had to pay for to get in as an audience member. But our festival was free to get in the door. You go to any venue on the weekend, get in for free, sit there and watch your favorite shows that you were a fan of, sit there and find new shows. You could sit there for 8 hours and listen to like 8 shows or something like that. No other festival I know of does that. All other festivals are more of a convention type of business where you're paying money, and in turn you're probably getting bigger talent. But I think what I like about the Philadelphia Podcast Festival is that it showcases the local talent first and foremost.
No, because
Good.
no, I want to ask you something, and if you're down for this, that would be really cool. So I mean, I think you're a really cool guy. I mean, and you're a really cool guy, and you know your stuff, and you're pretty knowledgeable and smart with the whole podcast thing here. How would you feel if well, I would love to do a part 2 with you, by the way, if you're down for that, because I love talking to you. This is an excellent conversation. I like this.
I don't even know how long we've been going, because like this is, I'm going to pull the curtain back real quick if you don't mind. We're recording over Discord, which is like a whole new experience, because I'm the old man that's like set in my ways. And you're like, you mentioned Skype, and I was like, well, that's a little too old school for me. But so like using Discord, there's no timer, so like I have no idea what we're doing right now. But go ahead.
We're at 58 minutes.
Oh man, okay.
But I'm saying, like, I would love to do a part 2 if you're down for that.
For sure.
The other thing I want to say on top of that too is that, like, how would you feel if like me and you were to collab? Because like, I mean, like not saying to start a whole new podcast, but saying like as if you were involved with Cyber Timebite somehow, like something like how the Conrad podcasts are, like one of us is kind of like the Conrad, like or something like that. How cool would that be, or something?
I mean, I don't know who or what a Conrad is, but I'm definitely I'm always open to talk about collaboration. Uh, Depending on what like the grand scheme of that collaboration pans out to look like. Yeah, I'm always up for that conversation. I am a big proponent
Because
of that.
basically what I'm trying to say is that I don't like if you and me want to work together. I would be okay with that because you're really cool and I think you're really nice and you're really knowledgeable. And you know your thing, and I think that'd be like benefiting for the both of us because we're both podcasters. You know.
Right. Yeah. No, that's something that I think the world of podcasting is really good at least in the circles I run in or have run in the past is, and I guess again this goes back to like saying in the independent level, and as long as you don't go on Reddit is they're mean spirited people, but no offense to slash podcast or however you shortcut that, but like the independent podcasters usually have each other's back, and I really love that. You can go if you don't go to Reddit, but if you go to like even Podern Family, I don't so much toil in the Podern Family anymore, but even in there you can find like some really great resources. But that's always been like my when I was trying to run a podcast network, like probably in 2018 2019, that was always the mission, was like offering a stage for people who have unique voices, that may or may not know how to really just get their voice out there, and then also so like being a resource for that, or being like a sounding board for questions. That was always kind of the dream, is like, hey, let's just have people that like have the same goals and can help each other. So yeah, I'm always open to move that conversation off air, obviously, and talk about collaboration and what that looks like to you, what that looks like to, me or whoever else may be involved.
Yeah, because that'd be I think that'd be really cool. We could talk about off air. But we're an hour and 1 minute in.
And here's the benefit of not getting to see my mug on a camera during the show, is that I'm not really enticed to be that guy that's like, let's take it to 90, let's go 90, like I was on Let's Chat Live. And I gotta say, as a guy who's done interview podcasts in the past, being able to like actually look at your timer and say, you know what, we're gonna wrap. We're gonna end this show in an hour, because like that's what normal people do. Responsible podcasters do, is they make sure that they respect their guest and their guest time, and we're gonna end the show in about an hour, maybe an hour and 5. We're not going to keep it going 90. We're not going to keep it going 120. I've been that host that has kept a guest for 2 hours. And have I felt bad? Yes. Have we delivered on that content? Absolutely. It was worth it. So, I have to applaud you, on several factors, that you're able to kind of rein me in, quote unquote, rein me in, keep me under an hour. I am sure we're over it now, but like keep me close to that hour. And be like going 144 episodes. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying this because I'm the guest on 144. I think 144 is like the perfect number. Like, you're gonna get to 150, and that's a milestone, but it's not as cool as 144.
What makes 144 a cool number, though? Not saying because you're the guest and all, but what makes you think 144 is a really cool number?
Oh, just because I'm on it. That's just because I'm on it. It's 100% an ego trip. I'm on it. No, but for real though, I'm a big proponent of like, I may have been doing this for, for 13 and a half, 14 years, something like that. Long time. A long time I've been doing podcasting. That's an impressive number. And I know people have done it at least a year longer than me, or have been involved for at least a year longer than me. And they're always impressive numbers. But what's more impressive to me is when you hit those high milestones, like 144, or realistically in 6 more weeks, 150. Like, that milestone is way more important than I think the amount of years that you've done it. And I think, when you hit 200, I've never done a podcast for 200 episodes. So that's like a super like important goal of mine one day, is to hit 200 episodes. And I think that's a milestone that like you'll eventually be proud of when you hit that. And I've talked to people that like they've gone 300 episodes. I'm like, that's impressive. And I've talked to people that have gone 400. I'm like, damn, how have you gone 400 episodes? I've been doing this I should be at episode 800 by now, and I'm not. Like, how is this possible? So I think that's like and not that you need advice or anything or any kind of like wisdom, but like I like to point that out to fellow podcasters, that like, because I do tout a lot that I've been doing this for over a decade, but that's not important. Like, that's just like my stat. That's a stat that I can, kind of just bring up everywhere. It's an interesting stat, but I think the more impressive stat is going 144, going 150, like you will in a few weeks. And hopefully, going, 300, going another 144 to 150.
Hey, thanks, man. I mean, we'll talk about that thing I want to talk about after I get off here, because I really want to talk about that with you. But for right now, we're at an hour and 5, and I'll do my outro and I'll let you do yours. Thank you everyone for listening to episode 144 of Cyber Timebite. You can find me on Facebook at Cyber Timebite. Follow me on Twitter at NostalgiaVamp. Follow me on Instagram at NostalgiaVampire. Buy all my merchandise at redbubble.com under Crash Steven Gear, where even the sport is the most powerful of them all. How about you? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at That Nerdy Kev. It's probably the best place to find me and where I talk my nonsense. I've kind of moved my more direct tabletop role-playing game takes to at Single Player RPG. Which is the Twitter account for my podcast that I'm currently doing, Single Player, the solo role-playing game podcast. And on that show, I sit around and play role-playing games designed or hacked for one player. You normally sit with a group of people, but hey, we're in a global pandemic. You can play these games by yourself, folks. So tune in right now. By the time you listen to this, there will probably be like 4 bonus episodes and 2 or 3 actual episodes up there. And Anyone Can Wear the Mask is my first series, where there's a superhero in a little county called Bison County trying to save the day. Listen to that wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, that's really awesome. And hey, everyone, I want to thank you all for listening today, and I hope all of you have a fantastic day. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me.